The entire country is watching this massive controversy unfold around Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the guy who, from Fox News, broed his way into the White House and then turned to the Department of Defense into the Department of War, and also the same guy who drunk texted war plans. Now he's under bipartisan scrutiny from both Democrats and Republicans alike. They're looking at reports and saying, this is really bad. You almost never see this happen, especially with this administration. So when you do, you just have to know something has gone so sideways. And this might be the first real crack that we're seeing in this MAGA political machine. When people who have defended everything since Trump came down that golden elevator 10 years ago, but are now saying, okay, no, this guy has lost it. Something is shifting. When GOP members who usually fold like wet cardboard are suddenly growing spines, something is up because after all the investigations, the backlash, the support is collapsing. And Hegseth somehow found a way to make it worse. And he made it so much worse in a way that's just so absurd and so tone deaf. And it reveals everything you need to know about how disconnected these people really are from reality. So what does Hegseth do after all this? He goes on Katie Miller's podcast with his third and current wife of the moment. Stick with me, because what happened next is genuinely so unhinged. And if you enjoy coverage like this, make sure you've also hit subscribed, because back in September, there was a strike against a suspected smuggling boat. One strike, most people were like, okay, fine. But then a second strike happened. And that's what everyone's really mad about. There's outrage. According to multiple reports, that strike hit survivors. There were people in the water clinging to debris to stay alive for literally life. And Hegseth said, shoot them. Hegseth then called it a decision he made in the fog of war. But legal experts say intentionally targeting survivors straight up violates international humanitarian law. Even if they were smugglers, which we don't know. We also don't know if the boat was even heading to the US, according to a lot of reports. You just can't kill people trying to survive in the water. And people are noticing. And even the most pro-military voices are saying this crossed a line.
It gives me no pleasure to say what I'm about to say because I worked with Pete Hegseth for 7 or 8 years at Fox News. This is an act of a war crime. Ordering survivors who the law requires be rescued instead to be murdered. There's absolutely no legal basis for it. Everybody along the line who did it, from the Secretary of Defense to the Admiral to the people who actually pulled the trigger, should be prosecuted for a war crime for killing these two people.
And who would?
Even Judge Andrew Napolitano, a senior judicial analyst at Newsmax, somebody who usually thinks that the government should use more force, not less, said that if these reports are accurate, the operation deserves a criminal investigation. And when Newsmax says you've gone too far through the lens of law because you shot survivors clinging to a boat for life, you have left the normal zone. But that didn't end there.
In this sense, it looks to me like they're trying to pin the blame on somebody else and not them. There's a very distinct statement was said on Sunday. Secretary Hegseth said he had no knowledge of this and it did not happen. It was fake news. It didn't happen. And then the next day from the podium at the White House, they're saying it did happen. So either he was lying to us on Sunday or he's incompetent and didn't know it had happened. Do we think there's any chance that on Sunday the Secretary of the Defense did not know there had been a second strike?
Rand Paul, the Republican senator who has spent years making headlines for taking the long way around the reasonable position, weighed in. He publicly argued that marriage should only be between a man and a woman. He helped amplify a debunked claim that Planned Parenthood sold fetal tissue. He once said the Trump administration uninvited him from a White House picnic. His father, Ron Paul, has had ties to all kinds of fringe groups. And in 2021, Rand Paul got suspended from YouTube for a week because he posted a video questioning whether masks worked or not during COVID. So no, Rand Paul is not necessarily the moral compass of the American people. He's not the voice of calm either, or any sort of measured thought. But, you know, sometimes, as they say, even a broken clock is right once a day. And even he said that Hegseth either lied or had absolutely no idea what he was talking about when he denied the second strike. Those were two options he gave, lying or incompetent. And honestly, both seem very plausible. But Rand Paul also pointed out something even more shocking. Hegseth suddenly tried to shift blame from the operation onto Admiral Mitch Bradley. And that moment everyone in Washington went, okay, no, that's really bad. Suddenly people are saying like Bradley needed to lawyer up. Why? Because Hegseth spent weeks bragging about his operation. There's clips on his own Instagram. He was taking credit, pounding his chest like a gorilla. And now the moment that the heat is turned up on him, he points at Bradley like, oh no, actually he did it. Republicans noticed and Democrats noticed too. And for once, everyone said the same thing. What the hell is going on? And honestly, I think this is where you start to see those cracks. When people in his own party, people who have swallowed every single scandal, every conspiracy theory, every single reckless stunt, there have been many of which, and they're now saying, okay, this has gone too far. This is a canon event. And somehow after all of this, after all the strikes, the backlash, the investigations, the finger pointing, the moral contradictions, and the nonstop chaos, where does Pete Hegseth go? He goes on Katie Miller's podcast. And I cannot talk about Katie Miller without reminding you that she is married to Stephen Little Bitch Miller, who, according to Twitter users, uses the pronouns he, him. And they were both outrun by their Little Virginia neighborhood by literal sidewalk chalk that said, families belong together. And she never is done with humiliation. She recently went on CNN and got demolished. Let's just give ourselves a little treat and look back at that for a second.
We are removing every single illegal alien that's in this country. And I would say a majority of those who've been removed have had serious violent crimes.
That's not true.
Today in the New Yorker.
That's not true. I hope you want to quote Sergeant saying that.
That is actually
that's
not
false.
Today in the New Yorker.
Demonstrably false.
Today in the New Yorker.
Based on DHS's own data, a majority of the people that they've detained have not had violent criminal record
that have been removed.
They have not. They have not had violent criminal records.
Up until last year, if I'm not mistaken,
but I also
you
think
fact
it
checked
is
me on this
not
before. But up until last year,
she's never done humiliating herself because she continues to put out content who are not helping Pete's image, like at all.
What's been the most surprising thing about being Secretary of War that no one warned you about?
I think probably the machinations of the budget process, and I'm not saying no one warned me about it, but understanding how much of this building is oriented around how dollars get allocated and how important that is. It's taken up more of my mind space than I thought it would because it is really important, especially because President Trump wants to rebuild the military. I know that's a really boring answer to that question, but probably is the one I at least expect.
If you could write one Hegseth family rule on that whiteboard, what is that?
It's just obey God. I do look to him, as we found out this morning, to set the standard.
Okay, so of course they present themselves as people of God because people of God would definitely defend their husbands through sexual assault allegations, culminating in a $50,000 confidential settlement. First of all, I don't want to hear about Pete Hegseth in bed ever again. So sorry about that, guys. Sorry about not giving you a proper content warning. I know it was gross, but watching Pete and Jennifer, two people who destroyed their families to be together, pretend like they're in a relationship with relationship goals is gross. Look, I'm not one to judge, but Pete Hegseth has been married 3 times. 3. And the way he moves from marriage to marriage is like he's just running through vows. He married his high school girlfriend, cheated on her multiple times, divorced, then married his second wife, had 3 kids with her, and a baby, while also dating his coworker, his now wife, Jennifer. They got married. His second wife filed for a divorce later, like real stand-up guy. And Jennifer, she was also married at the same time they met. So they were colleagues, banging in the back room, and they blew up their own 2 families and then blended them together. And now they're sitting on a couch giggling, playing this like cutesy couple thing while the world just burns. It's disgusting. Oh, and let's not forget, again, about the sexual assault allegations. Because in 2017, a woman accused Hegseth of drugging her and assaulting her at a hotel. During a Republican conference, of course. And he was never charged, but he sure did pay her that $50,000 settlement in 2020 to make it all go away. Very Trump of him. And his wife stood by him through all of it, posting on Instagram that they won't stop. They won't stop with Pete. It's not his values that they're after. No, Jennifer. It's actually about the alleged assault. But sure, let's make it about a culture war. And then here's the cherry on top. Pete and Jennifer got married at Trump's golf course in New Jersey. Wait, I don't know if God works like that, but after all this banter, it's straight into another softball question because softball questions from a cue card and a head nod is all Katie Miller knows. Okay, the awkward bickering back and forth, like they're trying so hard to be playful. Go on, baby, you go. No, you go first. What are we eating? Like, they're trying to pretend like they're so in love. This third marriage of theirs in the last 4 years is such a playful relationship. But like, secure couples, they'll just answer the question. They don't need to prove how comfortable they are and how playful they are by doing this like weird tennis match of like, no, you answer, I answer. Like, haven't we been through enough already? It just makes it more awkward for everyone watching. And then he comes out and straight up says Vladimir Putin, Zelensky, and Trump. Okay, so beyond those answers, like, let's start with who actually says their boss as their dream dinner guest. Ew. Like, sure, you can like your boss, but there's a time and a place, and that place is not my free fuck time. And also, when asked about what they would eat, he probably, like, if I'm being honest, wanted to say, not gonna say it. So instead, he said steak, which, if I had to guess, this man probably eats his steak with ketchup. And then there's the Golden Dome. The same golf course where Trump buried his first wife, Ivana, after she fell down the stairs and died. He buried her there for a tax break. Yes, I just learned about this recently. That's where they decided to have their wedding. At the same place where there's a literal gravesite where Trump's ex-wife is laying in internal rest for his financial benefits. I mean, when I found this out, I looked at these pictures, which I was like, no way, these are real. And they were verified. They look like AI. Basically, the whole plot where her burial site is on is not, they can't even be bothered to fucking landscape it. Give me a break. And of course, these people never shut up about God. They invoke God's name like it's a shield for every shitty thing they do. You can't wrap yourself up in a cross and then sit on a couch at a golf course burial site. It doesn't work that way.
Which brings me to the Golden Dome. It's one of the, I would say, projects that a lot of our country is the most excited about in terms of new things happening at the Pentagon and building us back up. It's going to bring together a lot of important radar and missile systems. Where is the Department of War on that project?
Tracking it every day. It's one of those, there's some items that you sort of, you know are ongoing in the background. And then there are ones that you make sure you have your best possible person on. General Gutlein is that person. And that from day one, we've been getting monthly updates on to make sure it's properly resourced and supported, the technology's there. But there's a lot that goes into it. But it's important to deliver because it's central to what the president has promised, which is secure the homeland. I mean, what your husband's doing on the border and with the cartels and everything is a part of that.
And if you're not familiar with the Golden Dome missile defense pet project, it's faced significant criticism. Many experts point to this project being extremely high cost. It's estimated to be between 500 billion and over 1 trillion. And people are questioning whether it's even like financially realistic. This is a project that's also very challenging from a technical POV. It involves developing and operating missiles in space, a problem some call a monster systems engineering problem. Analysts have raised questions about feasibility concerns and like doubting whether the technology can actually ever work as intended. Internationally, Russia and China oppose the project, warning it could destabilize space and create a militarized space battlefield. Critics compared it to Reagan's Star Wars program, suggesting it may be overly ambitious and politically motivated. And finally, many argue that pouring this much money into a single project could divert resources from other defense priorities. But let's just keep pretending like this is all normal. Let's keep acting like a defense secretary with a credible war crime allegation, multiple failed marriages, and a $50,000 settlement can just sit on a couch and play house with his third wife and pitch trillion-dollar space lasers while this country just falls apart in shambles. That's where we're at now. And if this doesn't alarm you, I don't know what will.